Hi, Dr. Amanda. Thank you so much for being on the Sakara Life podcast. We are honored to have you here today.
Thank you both, ladies. I'm really looking forward to it.
We like to start off every podcast with a question around your mission here on Earth. What are you here to do? What are you here to give?
I am here to help women actualize, not just realize, but actualize the power inside of them and to really just move in their lives in a way that they're no longer shackled to patriarchal storylines that they grew up with or were influenced by religion or family or culture.
I feel like you'll really appreciate this anecdote, but we've been doing this podcast now for 5 years, and every time we ask a woman this question, it's really about others and like giving. And you can hear it's rooted in the question, right? Like as to, female hosts of this podcast. And then, when a man typically answers, and of course there's been exceptions, but it's about his own personal path and like how he's going to like kind of self-actualize or, it's that first and foremost. And then, he'll usually get into what he's going to do in the world. And I think that's such an interesting kind of like diversion of the gender paths. And I love your content and what you do and the messages you put out into this world. And I saw something that you were talking about. It's like, what are you going to do when you're done giving? What are you going to do when, all the people you have on your list to take care of are taken care of? Who do you want to be? And so I love that question. And when you think about helping women, as you said, step into their power, is that kind of one of the first questions you ask? Because I think it's really interesting when most of us have defined ourselves by how we're taking care of others or giving to others, to ask the question, like, who am I without that?
I think there's a big fear that I might not even exist if I can't reflect back who I take care of and who I serve, that somehow this idea of my worthiness, actually possibly even my existence, is dependent upon the people that stand next to me, and that I have to earn worth or love through service. And there's a massive, oftentimes even unconscious fear that my clients have, that to not be in service full stop at all times in the ways they've been will lose them love, will lose them relationships, will lose them people wanting to be around them, rather than the idea like I get to shine as my own main character, not simply being everyone else's support characters. I get to shine as my own main character and let the people I've been supporting also exchange support character energy with me, and for all of us to elevate. And that is a misnomer. I think women are terrified. If I really claim all of what I feel inside, what if the people around me no longer want me in their life? Because a lot of times, unfortunately, men have gotten into relationships, in particular with women, under this unspoken expectation of like, well, you're ultimately, like, when it comes push to shove, like, my career leads, you're here to serve me and the family. And it's a nice to have if you've got like a hobby or a little passion on the side, a little passion project, but nothing that's going to distract or take away from the core of the people you serve. And so I think women have this massive fear, like, why even discover what's really in there? Because what am I supposed to do with it anyways? If I dare to do something with it, I might risk losing everyone.
And did you always feel this, like from childhood? Was this something that kind of like you embodied from a young age, or did you, find it later in life, maybe the hard way, as so
Yeah, I
many of
think
us
it's
do?
great question. Hard way, but right, almost divorced. I grew up in a very patriarchal Italian family, lots of conditioning around what life is supposed to look like and who played which roles. And I checked the patriarchal boxes. I had everything that I was promised would give me the most incredible, epic life. And putting my career second, I did all of that, and I found myself having endless resentment. and feeling like something was terribly wrong and missing. But I couldn't really confide in anyone or tell anyone that, because the few times I tried, everyone looked back at me like I was the problem, like maybe I was crazy because I had everything that was supposed to make me happy. And yet here I was saying something was missing. Come to find out, right, in all of my own work and what I lead women through now, and that was 17, 18 years ago for me. But what was missing in my life and my story was me. Most of the way I was showing up was in service to my community, in service to my children's dreams, in service to my husband's career. And if there was any time or energy left, I could focus on my work. But my work and my passion seemed to be getting the scraps of me. And that really felt imbalanced. And sometimes I felt like, well, there's just no way out. The system is not set up for me to get everything that I want to claim. It's just probably even selfish of me to want so much.
And so what does a transition look like? Like, what did your wake-up call look like? How did you transition out of that?
So my initial conversations with my partner started with, this is not working for me. We're going to need to find a different way forward. And essentially him being like, great, I totally support you on that. I think that's a great idea. But that came with the caveat, but I'm not changing anything in my career. Right. So I think this is where women's backs are against the wall. Oftentimes it's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. You want to go bigger in your career? Fully support you. Good luck figuring that out. Awesome. So it's like, oh my gosh. So I had to deconstruct and do all the work around, what does it mean to be the mom who's not going to be able to be at every single sporting event? What does it mean to be the mom who is going to have travel obligations? What does it mean? And I had my own stories and limitations around, well, then you're not really that good of a mom. Or there are kids. Excuse me, we will take this piece out. There are kids whose moms show up to everything. What are your kids going to feel or think when you could be here, but you maybe chose not to be because you put your career first? Am I going to scar them? Am I going to harm them? So I had a lot of that work to do for myself around, is being a good enough mom and showing up enough times with intention and presence, does that actually get to be enough? And I decided for me, that was going to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, this was even a question that came up in one of my mom group chats today, of just feeling this struggle between, feeling the mom guilt, but wanting to further her career, and asking in this group, like, is anybody else feeling this way? And everybody was raising their hands. And trying to figure out, is there a balance, and how do you find your way through?
Yeah,
And
can
I
I
think
add
that's
to that?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Is like, I think some of the hardest part is like, it's actually not so clear. It's not like, I'm with my kids and wishing I could work, or I'm at work. It's like you recognize that half of you is not in the room sometimes, no matter where you are. It's like, so if it were, this is personally, but I also talk to a lot of moms where it's like, and you're with your kids and it's hard not to be thinking about all you have to do, or you're at your job and it's hard not to be wishing you were with your kids. And so if it were simple and it were like, oh, I need to be at work, this is what fulfills me. It's like, but I think once you become a mother, you really are split in this way. And I think it's being okay with that. And I've tried to, part of the story I am trying to kind of grow within my own psyche is, I want them to reach for what they want in life. I want them to reach for the stars. And if they don't see me doing it, how are they going to know what it looks like or what it feels like? And so they watch me struggle. They watch me miss them. They watch me, say, you know what, I love my job, but I really don't want to have to go travel right now. And, talk about what's hard. I don't know what you think, but I think the goal, and a lot of times what I hear you talking about, Dr. Amanda, is it's almost full expression. How can you find full expression regardless of your gender? And that as women, it's almost like we are set up to fail with the ability to fully express ourselves, and that we are naturally inclined to hide parts of ourselves so that we can like fill in the blank. But the goal is, how can we fully express who we are? That can be in service, that can be giving, that can be being a mother, but expressing it no matter kind of where we are in our lives. Would you say that's right?
Absolutely. And I also think this comfortability of living with a lot of duality, like two things get to be really true at once. Like I can love so much being busy and traveling the world with my work and simultaneously be gut wrenched and so sad that I'm missing one of my kids' activities or events, right? Both get to be true. And I'm going to make different choices each time when I evaluate everything that's on the table. But, the proof for me really got to come full circle where in theory, this all sounds great, but then what does it look like in tangible results in one's life? So this past November, when I was on the stage of my first massive live event, where I've been doing this more retreat style, smaller formats around the world, now taking it and really building the matriarchal stage, because I've noticed one of the things missing for women is a stage, a place, a space only for women to talk about pleasure, to talk about business, to talk about wealth, expansion, relationships, sex, everything. So I created this 2-day really intensive experience. And my daughter, who sings, was there to also sing and perform at part of the opening, but then also was in the audience as one of the hosts and volunteers with previous clients of mine, side stage with my producer watching certain things happening. And 90% of the 2 days, she was just weeping. At the time she was 21, she's 22 now, but just weeping tears. And what she reflected back to me in my birthday card weeks later was pages and pages of everything I've heard you say and all the ways that you've taught me as a woman over the years. I got to watch it in real time from that stage. And Mom, I was in awe. You're everything I want to be and tenfold. And there was a moment in the green room where we went into the green room to get all the bags and everything. And so many times I have wondered, has it all been worth it? Will they secretly resent me for it? And I remember going into the green room to get my final bags, and it was just me and my daughter. And I turned around and she's crying and she's like, "Stop, Mom, I want to get my camera. I need to take a picture." She's like, "You are a literal goddess right now." Like, just you're emanating an energy that's so powerful. I never want to forget this moment in my life. And she wrote in my letter, like, that was a really pivotal, that whole weekend, but that was a really pivotal moment where I had actualized everything she'd been understanding that I couldn't be a part of in her or her siblings' lives at moments in time. She saw it all come to fruition. And she's like, it was all worth it. And if I had to give up small portions of my time with you so that you could make that kind of impact on that many women in the world, oh my gosh, Mom, I'm so happy to have been a part of this in some small way.
Wow. That is
So that's
powerful.
our
Really
daughters, our
inspiring.
sons, right? Our kids
Yeah.
getting to see it when they are old enough to understand it, when it all comes together, to stand back and be like, wow, that's my mom. Wow.
It's so beautiful. And I think about this like full expression and self-actualization and the stage, and then how all of that reflects into sexuality and sensuality. A lot of my friends whom I've been friends with for, 15, 20 years are now mothers and now divorced mothers. And I have to say, I have seen them come to their full expression more than the women in my life who have decided to stay in relationship. And it was not the story we've been fed. They're in their mid 40s. They're having sex that is like blowing their minds, and they're grieving because they're sharing time with the father of their children, so they don't get to be with their kids as much. But they get in the time where the father has the children. It's like they get to like find their rhythm and find themselves and really lean into the parts of themselves that I think they had lost. And so it makes me wonder, like, what the setup that we have in this current like culture of like what family looks like, what a household looks like, that it really doesn't forget gender. Honestly, it's really kind of like on both sides, but especially for women who kind of lean toward taking care of everyone, it's like it all falls on her, or in my case, my husband actually takes care of the kids in the house. But we have to be, but here I am, the woman, like I'm very mindful of making sure he gets time away, of making sure he gets what he needs to keep himself sane. And I often talk about, I think that it was supposed to be the other way around. I feel like men were actually supposed to take care of the household because I watch him carve out time for his sanity. I watch him demand, like, he plays music, so I watch him demand time alone to play his instruments. I watch him, and it's not even a like, hey, do you mind? It's like, I am going to go do this. And like, I don't know if I would have done that. And so I feel like a lot of what we're talking about, and certainly what you talk about, is like finding that voice. Because I think unless you're in a world where it's forced, like you're divorced or something like that, it's really hard to find that voice to demand or request whatever it is you need to find that full expression. So how do you help women find like the tenacity, the bravery, the voice to ask for it?
Yeah, helping her understand by not, it's actually contaminating her kids, it's contaminating her relationship because that resentment is building. If it's underneath, unspoken, it is leaking out and contaminating everybody else, even if you don't think it is. So, the most beautiful thing we can do is to, when we create that time and space for our passions, our desires, our whatever it is that we need to fill back up, the ideology being truly, I have seen myself parent from a place of resentment and parent from a place of overflow. And they are two very different energies. And so it's not until women are willing to actually get into the actionable steps that will require them to say the hard thing. And the first few times is the hardest, then starting to know, okay, pay attention to when you come back and on the scene, are you then serving and giving and being with your family from a place of overflow now that you've had this thing inside of you fulfilled? And more often than not, they report they are. But if you're married to someone who's going to keep score, who's going to shame and blame you for taking time for yourself, then you're probably not in a great situation to set yourself up for reciprocity in the relationship or any kind of real partnership. That's more like a prison.
I think even figuring out what you would do at that time can be hard if all of your time is always gone towards servicing everybody else around you. Like, how do you help women
Absolutely.
discover what it is that they even want to do?
That's such a great question. And sometimes, women say that to me often. And sometimes I've said, it's okay if you want to go and get yourself a coffee and just go sit in the woods or sit at a beach or sit on a sidewalk and just look at the trees or the birds. Start there. But really and truly, in all truth, when I'm helping women to excavate for what it is inside of them that they could tap back into, I take them back to their 7, 8, 9-year-old self because the most raw version of who we are still lives in the time spent there. And she's just been conditioned out of us often because, oh, that's what you can't make a life being an actress or a dancer or a painter or an astronaut or whatever it was, helping her get back to what it was she loved when she was a little girl and then doing that in her free time. And so for some women, I can give some examples. Like one of my clients who was like, I don't even know where to begin. I'm so disconnected. For her, she used to, as a kid, love building forts in her backyard and love climbing trees. And so for her, it was like, I like to hike. I want to be in nature. I'm going to start hiking. And she now runs an all women's hiking club in Northern California. Never even on her radar before. Another woman who loved to go in the backyard and pick all the little flowers that were the weeds growing. And now she has left real estate and she runs a floral business from like a renovated old van that travels around, the parts of San Diego. So helping women, a woman who used to love to dance as a child, but theoretically was told she got too big. And so she moved away from it, now runs dance initiatives for women after 40. So it's like, it's unbelievable how the truest parts of ourselves still live in that little girl energy. And she's kind of standing there waiting for us to come back and claim her. So more often than not, when a woman is stuck, I help guide her there and we find ways to bring the magic back to her life. And she often turns it into a profitable business.
We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but what is a fully expressed woman? What does a powerful woman look like? I hear you talk about this, but I'd love to kind of hear you muse on it because I think I witness, and I've certainly been there, so many, especially women, walking around just feeling okay and being okay with that because they have forgotten, or maybe they never knew, no one ever told them or showed them how good we can feel, how good it can feel to be in our kind of fully expressed feminine power.
Yes. So my work helps women to resurrect all kinds of archetypes that are living within them. And it's more about a remembrance. My work is a lot of women saying, like, oh, yes, something ancient feels like it's being activated inside of me. I'm like, right, because this was always there. It's just been laying dormant. And we've lost the art through the thousands of years of having patriarchy ruling, where women are no longer mothers, grandmothers, are not passing down archetypal ways of living, right? There's one way, and it's usually the woman who is the virgin, but yet she's a mother, like the virgin mother, right? And so that's what's
The
acceptable to
unattainable.
society. Right. She looks perfect all the time. She's never had sex, but somehow she has had babies, and she cares for everybody and saves her family over and over again. But what I do is I help women tap into all the full range. And the full range includes that every one of us, and this has nothing to do with biological or adoptive mothering. I'm talking even with the single clients I have. So I currently have 70 clients from all over the world, and they are in these mastermind journeys for 6 months. And we go through the reclamation of a variety of archetypes, anywhere from the mother within, because all of us have had mothers, but so few of us have ever been properly mothered. So I teach women how to mother themselves back to wholeness so that they don't have to seek outside for those wounded parts to be repaired through partnership, through food, through alcohol, through attention, through success, through money, whatever. So the divine, that divine mothering that comes from within, right? And then also helping women connect to the part of them that has profound, sometimes generational, unspeakable grief and rage. And even if you have a pulse and are paying attention at all right now to the world, the rage for collective women, sisterhood, even rage for being a white woman, maybe who was asleep for a very long time. What do we do with the grief and the rage from childhood traumas to our current life situations? Women have not been given a portal for expression and alchemization of that grief. So it turns into fossil fuel that contaminates them. Hence, 80% of women having autoimmune diseases and high rates of cancer, because they suppress, they take a drink, they take a gummy, they shop a little more, they have an affair, and they're just trying to feel something like a quick dopamine hit, but not willing to go down and actually release the true contamination. So I teach them about how to get into that Kali energy. And we spend like at least a good month in every one of these. And then I walk them through that energy of that sacred slut, that horror in every one of us, because I can always tell how far along a woman is in her life and her relationship to money, her body, and her relationship with her partner and her body, and how she relates to pleasure through her own divinity, her connection to pleasure, her connection to her body, her connection to her womb space, to all of it. So I take women on a very intense self-pleasure journey through all 5 senses. And then we also look at leading our lives through this queen energy, because I often get women who come to work with me. I was one of these as well, who's operating 90% of her life in princess. She thinks she's a queen, but she's often operating out of princess energy.
What does that mean?
Princess energy is the woman who is still in her like pick me energy. And is it okay? Do you approve? Will you still like me? Is it safe to do that? Whatever you say, it doesn't really matter that I have needs and feelings. It's just, don't abandon me. Don't leave me. I'll perform for you. I'll contort myself. I'll look youthful forever. I'll always say yes. I'll always be pretty. I'll always be pleasing, right? She's just like, yes, because she's terrified of being abandoned. She's terrified of her truth. Then the queen has this sovereign energy of just knowing. So while the princess is constantly seeking, pick me, never enough affirmation, the queen is being. The queen is being the woman who leads her life. She is a grounded, rooted energy who's in massive self-trust. So I help them kind of release the princess who's very erratically operating at the wheel and like barely can see over the steering wheel. And I help them release her to go and be free so that the queen can really step into the woman. Because I see grown women operating their lives from energy of like a 15-year-old. It's really, really destructive. And it's really not landing them into the results they want, and not results they can hold long term.
And I think a lot of that is kind of where we started, which was, Whitney asked the question of like, what do you do with the time that you're going to request? And I think similar to that, what I hear you saying is you have to follow your pleasure, but so many women are so disconnected from their pleasure that they have kind of collapsed worlds on what someone else wants. And I had to really unlearn that. I came from a single mother who had devoted her life to other people and still does to this day, and has no idea kind of like how to bring herself. She's learning now. She just turned 78. And like, Whitney and I were talking about it earlier. She just left. She was visiting me, and, she'll take herself out dancing and she'll do things, but I can still see in her that it's so that she can like, get not just get attention, because attention is deserved and that can be your pleasure, but it's attention so that she can then please someone. It's like I still see it in her. I still see it like seeping out of her. And so I'm still unlearning, but a really big part of kind of my own journey has been uncoupling someone else's pleasure from my own and letting my own pleasure, even if it's like the pleasure of food, does not have to just be sex. It can be, the pleasure of going out dancing for the night and dancing for myself instead of dancing. Like all of those things have made such an impact in my life. And so how do you help women even begin to find the seeds of pleasure who have been ignoring it their whole lives?
You can't begin to find the seeds of pleasure. That's why we spend an entire 2 weeks, day in and day out for 2 weeks. I ask the most uncomfortable questions, and one question each day to help them deconstruct, like really go down into the roots and start pulling up from the root systems. Because just like a fish doesn't know it's swimming in water, most women, very successful, very accomplished women, don't even understand the invisible toxins they breathe in every day of patriarchy. They are so deeply enmeshed in it, they don't even understand most of the choices they are making are from that conditioned place. So first, you have to start to pull yourself apart, deconstruct, understand where it came from, decide if you want to even do the hard ass work required to deconstruct it. Only then can you build and architect something new. We can't architect something new until we've understood the root system that keeps pulling us back. So when I see leaders just try to bypass all that and go right to like, you can manifest anything you put your visions on and your sights on, I'm like, no, you actually can't. Until after 27 years of doing this, I know, until you heal and understand that system that's going to automatically want to pull you back. Because the neural pathways, the nervous system, the cellular memory is so deep. And we are not just carrying our own. We're carrying that for hundreds of years of trauma that happened before us inside our own mother's womb space. You were already the potentiality of yourself inside of your mother's womb, in her ovary, inside of your grandmother. So every trauma, every heartbreak, every terrifying moment that your grandmother experienced, you energetically experienced, because your mom already had the portion of you inside of her ovaries, because a female fetus has all the eggs of her lifetime by the time she's 14 weeks in utero. So when we understand energetically how we've been impacted, we know that it's not as simple as like positive affirmations. That's why I get so frustrated by some of the self-development world, and it's why until a lot of women come into my work, they're like, nothing stuck with me. Like there were moments of relief, there were moments of aha, but nothing had like profound staying power. I'm like, because nothing's been scripted just for women and our experience as women in the world.
And I think we can't have this conversation without talking about aging and beauty and that narrative that we've been told that our worth and our value is in our beauty and our youth. And, I think it is challenging to be in this world and to feel, to have society kind of feeding us that narrative all the time, and then being women who our bodies change, and as especially into perimenopause and into menopause, it's a lot of change. And so how do you like let all of that go and find your power in that moment?
I don't attach to a cheap system that was written by men that's going to tell me that I'm less worthy because I have another decade of lived experience. As a matter of fact, I know the opposite to be true. I know that my continued growth and wisdom only makes me more potent. So I do understand why we want to infantilize women forever, because she's easier to control if she's worried about how she looks. So I already am like, so I could never fall prey or victim to any of those schemes, and why I've let my hair go gray, why I've never touched Botox, because I understand what the mass marketing machine is trying to do. And I'm far above playing that game. So what I do is when I go into the woods or I watch a sunset, I don't critique or analyze Mother Nature. I don't think, wow, if only as that sun was setting, if there were just a few more orange rays off to the left, it would have been perfect. I don't go into the woods and think, too bad that oak tree is that big. It's got a little bit too many branches on it, right? Or too many knobs in the trunk. I go in and I see the majesty of it. So I decided many years ago, it was the way I was going to see myself. So I see the majesty. I am in such awe. It brings me to tears, truthfully. I am in such awe and reverence of this human experience that I'm having here. I don't want to spend 1 minute trying to go back to who I was then, because you can't simultaneously go back and forward. I'm more curious about who I'm becoming. So every silver hair that shows up, every line, every sunspot, every crepiness on my skin, I'm here for it, and I'm honoring it like a divine mother would her child. I'm like, wow, you are beautiful. And I just won't spend 1 ounce of my precious and sacred life falling for a system that wants to try to convince me to inject toxins into myself and poison myself. I have no time for it. I'm too busy creating magic with my life.
Can I ask you a question? Because I think off the back of that, I'm looking at you right now and you're so beautiful. And, I think how do you, let me figure out how to phrase this question because I don't exactly know it. It's forming in my brain now, but it's something about, I think there's a way to live in this world where you are slightly adhering to patriarchal principles. Like, we're all, I don't know, wearing jewelry. We all have like a little bit of low cut. Like, how do you begin to understand what is informed from the patriarchy versus what is your own self-expression? Like, can you actually ever really pull it completely apart? Or is there this kind of in-between where you feel fulfilled and also can recognize that I live in the jungle and I'm probably later going to go to the beach and wear a tiny bikini? And is that because of the patriarchy? Or is that I feel comfortable in a bikini? It took me a long time to get there. But you know what I mean? How do you start to comb through all of those little things?
It's such a beautiful question, and it's going to arrive at different places for all of us. I'm wearing this beautiful necklace because I bought this for myself. It is adornment of what is. There's a difference for me about adorning what already is and not having to chop away or harm something because I'm coming from a place of lack or worth. I'm also not wearing a low cut. Anybody who believes that low cut tops were made for men, again, is patriarchy. I'm wearing it because I don't have a good air conditioning system in here. We have a venting problem, and I'll sweat my ass off, and I'm in shorts even. Right. So, but the idea, the ideology that low cut means for male presentation. I have a pole in here. I've been pole dancing for 15 years. My husband's seen me probably 4 times. The idea that the pole is for the man. So it's we have to start looking at those things and saying, I would not have even thought that. A low cut shirt means I'm doing this for a man. There's not even a man on here. And I don't think there's probably many, I don't know how many men, if this is even viewable, if this is only on a podcast, but when the question gets asked, I understand why you would be thinking, somebody could be thinking that way because they're like, oh, that's through a male's lens, right? So the idea that even a pole, people are like, pole dancing, why would you do that? Do you come home and do that for your husband? Do you get turned on by other women in your class, right? Because they don't even have a concept that there's a world that exists where a woman might dance for herself. for her own connection to her body, for her own connection to her power. We have got to stop. When you center the male gaze, you'll see this shirt, this necklace, that pole, you'll see this lip gloss, everything you will see through the male lens. I don't even think like that. I see it through, this is a gauzy shirt that feels airy and comfortable. That pole turns me the fuck on for myself. And I write the most creative stuff after I've danced on that pole, right? So when you live a life where the male lens is, everything about the male is centered, you will see a small bikini through a male lens, right? So, or you see it through, no, actually, this just feels fabulous on my body. I love this. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't matter if it was a turtleneck bathing suit. It wouldn't matter if it was a long sleeve bathing suit. It wouldn't matter if I was naked. It's like, but when you live your life with the male lens as the center of the universe, you believe the whole decision-making process of the world is from that place. That's why I'm so free to age the way I'm aging, because I don't give a flying fuck what any man thinks about my gray hair, my wrinkles, none of it. So I'm free. You become so free when you stop wondering what do men think about it. I could really care less what men think about it.
What about the idea of like women dress for women? Is that like toxic femininity? Is that like...
No, that's patriarchalized women. That's still a woman performing. She's a princess, right? A woman doing anything for anyone outside of herself, she's still a performer of her life. That's a princess energy. A princess walks into the world like, well, I'm going to do this to like get dressed for the girls or show them. Or what about like, I'm putting this on because it feels unbelievable when it touches my skin. I want to feel enveloped by this, luxurious fabric tonight when I'm on the dance floor. That's a queen. A princess is like, well, what will the other women think if I wear this? I wonder if they'll think it's too low cut. I wonder if the other husbands will be threatened by it. Like when you stop worrying about all of that, you remove yourself from what will other people think and you worry about how will I feel. So let's focus more on who cares how I look living my life? How do I feel living my life? That's the most liberating way to exist.
What about the idea of this question has two parts. What are your thoughts on the whole like trad wife thing? Because I do think personally that some women might find full expression in that space. Do you believe that? Do you agree or disagree? And then the second question is, what about women who are turned on by being desired? Like, so then you play into the patriarchy, but maybe with queen energy?
Okay, so I'll answer the first question. I think every woman should choose for herself. If you get lit up as F, baking all day in the kitchen, and that's your jam, by all means, like I never want to be that woman who like dictates what it gets to look like. Listen, if you're a woman who wants to go fill your face with filler and Botox and you want to call that like feminism, go for it, right? All day long. I'm stating my beliefs and how I actually see for my life the best way to move forward. If somebody finds fulfillment in that, absolutely, as long as you have an agreement or arrangement where you're not going to then be trapped. What I find happens with trad wives is they get trapped into a lifestyle where they can't actually freely express because they have no financial resources. They are a victim, or not a victim, they've chosen that, but they are in the circumstance where I don't know how liberating and freeing that is, but each woman can choose for herself. I also think there's a lot of question mark as around Mormonism pumping a lot of money into the trad wife movement and paying for that to happen. So I think we also need to make sure we know that there's that is happening behind the scenes. This is not evolving as naturally as people think it's evolving. A lot of those are paid to play because Mormon religion is trying to bring that lifestyle back. So when we understand the root of it and the sickness of it. So that's part of the psychological conditioning that's happening there for women, trying to help them think or believe that, I don't know about either of you, but I've been in eras of stay-at-home mom energy. I barely brushed my teeth, let alone put on a glamorous dress to bake or make bubble gum from scratch or all this insanity that they're showing. I think it's going to cause more mental illness. I mean, I remember having reactions when I learned about Pinterest when I was a new mom, and I'd see like the 76 pumpkins decorated, and we could barely find time to get to the pumpkin patch to get one. And then like seeds were all over the floor and everyone's melting down because like they're tired or the pumpkin seeds didn't cook fast enough. I'm like, we are setting up such, I think, unattainable standards and more failure for women. I think it's actually going to cause more issues. As far as a woman being turned on by being desired, of course, who doesn't want to be desired? But here's the thing. If you don't learn how to desire yourself first, you will forever chase cheap desire from somebody who won't call you the next day. So learn to desire yourself and you will never go hungry. You will never feel like you have to take the first warm body that comes along and looks across the room at you. And I had a client who blew up her entire life in our marriage. And I said, I said, what was it all worth it in the end? And she looked at me and she said, I was so starved. I felt like I'd been traveling through the Sahara Desert for years. This man looked at me and said, I love your eyes. And that was all it took for me. So when you don't know how to desire yourself, when someone says, I love your eyes, it's like, oh, thank you so much. But you don't blow your whole life up for it, right? If you build a life on needing to constantly be affirmed, what happens to you when you reach a point in your life when that doesn't happen? Is your life over? Do you cease to exist?
Yeah. And what about young women, like 20, 21, 22, like your daughter? I think that at that age, it's really easy to feel like your worth is wrapped up in your beauty or in your weight or whatever it is, because you don't have a career yet. You don't have years of experience in life and wisdom you can share with others. You don't, and so what would you tell to those women in order to step into their queen energy?
I would tell them to find people like myself. I would tell them, because I know it saved my daughter. Like everyone she knows does Botox and fillers and starves themselves and sticks their fingers down their throat. And she's like, Mom, I just feel, I don't know how I got this lucky to have you as my mom. I feel so free from all that because I've been raised by you. So it's very hard to give lip service to our daughters and be like, love yourself, if you aren't a mother who loves yourself. And she watches you turn and manipulate your body and do things to it. So I would say to her, I have young women stop me in the streets every single week. I cannot go anywhere in this world, literally, no matter what country I'm in. Young girls come up to me. They're like, thank you so much. We don't have leaders like you. We don't have women who are claiming and coming out just so naturally and so powerfully and just saying how it is. So women are starving. I was starving for leadership. Where are those women? Like really and truly, where are those women who are divested from toxic beauty culture and patriarchy? And so when we find those leaders pointing more young women and to show them there is an example, there is a way.
And what about when you were talking about, you're taking your clients back to when they were 7 or 8? I have a almost 7-year-old. Like for those of us who are mothering women, young women, what are your advice? What's your advice for making sure they stay so true to their core desires, that they're so free right now? Her desires are so free. And she talks about them. She lives by them. And I want it to stay that way.
Yes. And research shows that the average girl around 10 years old starts to dim her light, right? Because the outside world, whether it's school, whether it's teacher, whether it's something she saw on a TV show, she starts to question everything about herself. So the job is to be in constant conversation with her, right? And pay really close attention when you notice subtle things are changing, because it's going to happen, right? In certain ways, she's going to dim her light. She's going to contort herself. She's not going to say the truth of how she feels. She's going to go through a period. She absolutely is. My own daughter did. And it's part of their own finding of themselves and their identity. But your job is just to keep shining the light and holding the embodiment of a self-expressed woman, a woman who shows her daughter openly what it looks like to cry or feel sadness, but not make her daughter responsible for her sadness. A mother who dances around in the kitchen like she's a 7-year-old and is silly and playful, and a mother who leads at her own self with tenderness and kindness and self-compassion and care, right? And the warrior, I mean, she'll learn how to live by watching what you embody.
It's such a good reminder, because I feel like, I started dieting at the age of 9. 9's my earliest memory. Feeling like I had to go find an answer because 1, I didn't have the answer, and 2, I had to change myself to be valued in the world. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to be 7 this year. Like, and everything happens faster now than it did when I was a kid. Like, what if it starts happening
It's so
earlier and
devastating
earlier?
to think like going from building sandcastles and believing you
I
can be a
know.
unicorn trainer and a ER doctor simultaneously. And then all of a sudden it's like something happens and now we're worried and focused internally about like, my body's wrong. My body's not right. I need to fix it. I need to make it better. I need to make it more appealing. I mean, it's so tragic to me.
It's
So tragic to
so
me.
tragic. And we talk a lot here at Sakara about body intelligence. And it's something I talk about with a lot because, obviously like my background and master's is in functional medicine and nutrition. And so it's something we talk about, like food is, and they know my work. And so I talk about it. But with body intelligence at the core, not nutrition. Like I think nutrition has always been the wrong word. It's like a scientific word. It's not an embodied word. And so this idea of, how does your body feel? So now they're in this amazing place where it's like, as I said, my mom was in town. It was her birthday. We went out for ice cream and neither of them finished their ice cream cone. It's like, I was like, just go enjoy it. And then they're like, yeah, I'm done. And they just put it away. And I'm like, you know what? That is like such self-expression. That's like a fully expressed desire that then was met and they didn't have to go past it. Like whatever is happening there, like I want it to happen in all of these other places where like go for what you want. And when you're done, like let's move on and go do something else. It's like instead of what I feel like I did as a child and was taught to do was like, you have to complete yourself in all these other ways because I never really understood that I had the opportunity to follow my desire. And so just that embodiment of like, yeah, what do you want in this given moment? And it's like, even for the people listening right now, it's like, it's these little decisions that I think about all the time. Like, for example, my husband loves a warm room. I don't, especially since kids. I just am like so hot all the time. And I'm like, no, you can put on a sweater. Where I feel like my 16-year-old self or even like 21-year-old self would have been like, oh yeah, okay, I'll just sweat and I'll be happy. It's like these little, they feel small, but they happen all the time, these moments where we can choose ourselves rather than choosing and taking care of someone else. So
Right.
this
And
is
saying, I'm worthy. I am
Yeah.
valuable. I deserve to have pleasure. I deserve to have what I want just as much as somebody
even
else.
if it inconveniences you.
Yes. Yes. And being able to state and name the thing you want, even if somebody else might feel put out by it. Yeah.
Such a good reminder. And I love that of just checking in with yourself as being kind of a first step.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to go eat after this or do after this? Or, and is it an expression of your true desire? It's a question I try and bring up often for myself. Before we end, I forgot to ask something I really want to hear you speak about. I remember being a young woman and, starting my period, and it was like awkward and weird. And in my household, even the conversation around sex was really based in fear. And I think there was a bit of a kind of revolution around it. Like there's, new period care and women are talking. And I think this is one of the blessings of social media is I think it gives a voice to things and a story and the ability to kind of not keep things in a dark corner, but to kind of like air them out, the places where maybe some of us had shame or we didn't know or were afraid to ask. And then as I became a mother, I also feel like I was very fortunate that it just in that time, like it became really cool to be a mom. Like when my mom was a mom, it was like what you did and it wasn't what I feel it is now, which is like I've never felt sexier than I do now as a mother. And I have several friends and Whitney included where it's just like this empowered experience. And now I feel like we're kind of watching, hopefully, and of course, whether it's, young women going through puberty or birth, or there's a lot of work to do. But I do feel like there's been small little seeds of change. And I see a lot of conversation around perimenopause, menopause. And I think that there is still something missing from the conversation because it's still so functional, scientific, clinical, hormonal. And I'm like, there is a role for the crone. There is a role for like this honored women in society that no longer are there to procreate, but have this other role. And, there was that study that came out recently where it's like women who, perimenopausal women, like the brain changes that happen allow them to be like the wise woman. And that's what we get to offer. But to your point, we never live in those societies. We never live in those homes. I guess I don't really have a question, except I just want to hear you talk about like that, that phase and like the kind of steps of like maiden to mother to wise woman. Like, how can we continue to honor it, unearth it? Because I think especially more than maiden to mother, it's very feared. There's like, people talk about waking, they talk about losing your hair and not sleeping at night. And nobody talks about like the power that can come from that change.
Well, my book just came out. It's called Muse. Let me just grab it. So I wrote a whole book about this. It came out 2 weeks ago.
Congrats.
But it's called Muse, The Magnetism of Women Who Stop Abandoning Themselves. And while this book is not just about perimenopause, menopause, it does start to look at it. That's what it was going to be about. And then when I had all these young women coming up to me all over the world, I realized, I need to write a book that speaks to how young it starts in the 20s, like women who fear aging before they've even started living, right? So this book is geared for all women of all age groups. But I will say that for me personally, I'm not on any hormone replacement therapy. I'm 52, headed towards 53, obviously. And I have been very conscious about how I'm approaching this. I'm now like I had a stint where I didn't bleed for 5 months, and then I got my period back for a few months, and now I'm at 4 months of no bleeding. So I'm not sure like what the next steps are, but I have a couple of the symptoms that people talk about. And I've decided to make them mean something different. So, for example, one of the big things is you get dry eyes. Like your eyes get insanely dry as you're going through this perimenopause journey. Not every woman, it's one of the symptoms. Now, I could belabor the point all day long. I could be up in arms about it. I could take HRT to up my estrogen so there's more lubrication there. But what I've decided to do is I bought a warming eye mask, which is one of the most beautiful comforts. And every night before I fall asleep, the warming eye mask goes on my eyes. And rather than me falling asleep, like finishing those last few emails before I turn my phone off at night, now I'm falling asleep with this warming eye mask on, and I'm dedicating those 10 minutes just to how much my eyes have seen that day, how much my eyes have witnessed that day, the power of this work that I'm doing. And it is really sacred for me. And it's taking care of the dry eye issue. The other thing I'm having an issue with is depth perception. So if I'm in a large space and I'm changing from like a marble floor, an unfamiliar space, not my home, like a marble floor, and all of a sudden on the marble floor, there's a carpet coming up. My brain from far away can't differentiate, is that a rug or is that a step? So I have fallen twice when this started happening a year ago. And so many people are like, just get on the HRT. What are you trying? Like, what are you doing? But what I've realized, I've rushed through a lot of my life. I lived in New York City. I was a fast walker. I moved like there was nobody's business. And I'm sure I missed a lot of magic along the way. So now I walk a little slower with a little bit more pride and intention. And I really am present with my steps, which allows me to be present with my surroundings, the person whose hand I'm holding, the people I'm in conversation as I'm walking through that place. And then the other thing I'm experiencing is no longer, because I started taking fish oil 6 weeks ago. So I had about 8 weeks of hot flashes. Since taking fish oil, I've not had one, but I was having 3 a night. So my husband, who's begged me to sleep with like more air conditioning on our whole marriage, finally got his wish to come true. We're sleeping like with Arctic temperatures. I'm totally naked. Another one of his dreams coming true. And we have this big fan right next to my side of the bed. So 3 times a night, I was having these hot flashes, totally naked. I would stand up in front of the fan and I would just stand there And I would ask myself, in the way when my blood used to drip into the toilet and I would see it, I would say, what else do you need to release, Amanda? What else needs to be released that no longer serves you? So I was very sacred about my periods. I'm very sacred about my hot flashes. I stand in front of that fan, arms outstretched, my neck back, and I say, let it all burn. That which no longer serves me, let it burn so I can step into the woman I am meant to be next. So I refuse to be scared. I refuse to try to make these symptoms go away because these symptoms are sacred. I'm on a bridge to the woman I'm becoming, and I'm not afraid of aging. So you can't sway me or seduce me into infantilizing me or making me want to look younger or not have these symptoms. These symptoms have a message, just like my contractions had a message in childbirth. So do these. And I'm not going to miss any of them because I'm most curious who I'm becoming on this journey. And we need to have conversations where women talk about becoming mothers, becoming, coming into their period season. What about becoming this next version of myself? What about becoming the empress or the crone or whatever we want to call it? I don't want to miss a moment of becoming her.
And what if all those things are the path to being the wise woman? Like,
I believe they are.
Yeah.
I believe they are. They're my initiation.
So good. Dr. Amanda, you're amazing. We could talk to you for hours and hours. Thank you for what you're doing, what you're embodying, the light that you're carrying. We all are grateful to you. We'd love for you to give our listeners some light work. I feel like they have a lot.
Yeah.
But maybe an official light work from you on how to embody or live or practice what you've been talking about today.
Yes, I would say, my favorite place to begin in my day every morning before my phone even gets turned on, before I interact with anybody else in the world, is to take myself to the mirror and just commune there for 2 to 3 minutes every morning. Because in that space, in that place, everything that I know I'm going to come at during the day, everything feels so much less, not even important, but it feels like it's coming from a grounded space. So when I start my day, not worrying about who needs what from me, but connected with my soul, not as a let me like check myself out, but let me go and meet myself there this morning. When we start our days like that, we build this unbelievable relationship with ourselves where everything else just feels amazing throughout the day because I've already set the tone with myself. And it's this idea of like, I've got you. And we're gonna be in this day together, and it's gonna be beautiful and amazing, even in the hard stuff. So starting when you don't know where to start at all, start spending 2 to 3 minutes every morning for at least 90 days straight in the mirror and just communing with yourself, and watch your beliefs about yourself, watch the stories you tell, watch the way you even see yourself begin to change. And then the decisions that follow.
Incredible. I love even like the idea of demanding that time for yourself. Even that is such an act of rebellion for so many of us. Like that time
and it's
for
a
myself.
more an act of rebellion for a woman to go to the mirror, not with a critical lens,
Right.
but to go to the mirror in honor and in reverence for the miracle that is.
Thank you so much. That
Thank
was
you
incredible.
both for having me.
So inspiring. Congratulations on your new book. I can't wait to read it.